After Xiao Yan and his group parted ways with the man from earlier, Xiao Yan slowly spoke up. I don't know why, but his aura felt somewhat familiar, though I can't quite put my finger on it. How strange. Mu Yingying's expression became serious as well. I had the same feeling, and I sensed something else from him. It felt like the presence of fire. Let's not dwell on it. We should be cautious. Tomorrow is the auction, after all, Xiao Yan said decisively, dropping the matter after getting nowhere with his thoughts. This was, after all, the Xinling royal family's territory, and the man from earlier clearly had a background of some significance. Otherwise, with Xiao Yan's powerful soul perception, he would have easily investigated the man. Yet, each time Xiao Yan tried, something on the young man's body blocked his probing. Let's move on. We're almost at the end of the medicinal market. Let's see if there's anything we need, Xiao Yan said as he led the group forward. Ice core soul fruit, that's a good find. Xiao Yan muttered as they walked. If you mix it with other herbs and crush it to make a medicinal bath, it can significantly strengthen your soul power. However, it's only effective for those below the imperial level, which limits its value. Wow, what's this? Mu Yingying and Mu Feng both looked over at Xiao Yan with admiration. Fire spike stone? Xiao Yan marveled. I've heard that these stones form only after being submerged in magma for hundreds of years. This one must be over 1,000 years old, judging by its size. As they explored, Xiao Yan kept identifying rare treasures, each more valuable than the last. His expertise in herbs was impressive, and Mu Yingying and Mu Feng couldn't help but feel a bit envious. After searching the entire market, however, they still hadn't found the herbs they specifically needed. Xiao Yan shook his head, preparing to leave. I can't believe they don't have the herbs I'm looking for, Mu Yingying said with a slight sigh. Though I don't have the strength to refine a second-rank Imperial Earth pill yet, I can start gathering the materials. What are you still missing? Xiao Yan asked, trying to comfort her. I've gathered most of what I need, but I'm still missing 3 key ingredients. The Heaven Soul Human Fruit, Spirit Essence Liquid, and the 10,000-Year Snow Lotus Core, Mu Yingying said softly, her tone calm. Heaven Soul Human Fruit, Spirit Essence Liquid, 10,000-Year Snow Lotus Core. Xiao Yan repeated, and his jaw nearly dropped in disbelief. Good heavens! The Heaven Soul Human Fruit is legendary for its ability to greatly enhance soul power. Even a person with low intelligence could become far more intelligent after consuming it. Xiao Yan exclaimed. There's even a legend that says the fruit was a gift from an angel to humans, moved by their love. It purifies the mind, returning it to a state as pure as a newborn's. It's considered a holy fruit for cleansing the soul, but it's almost impossible to find in the human world because of the extreme conditions needed for its creation. It only forms when a couple deeply in love both die together, and even then, the chances of it forming are slim. Some say the angelic race has methods to cultivate it, but finding the angels themselves is harder than reaching the heavens. Then there's the Spirit Essence Liquid, Xiao Yan continued. It's known as the essence of soul power. While not as rare as the Heaven Soul Human Fruit, it's still incredibly difficult to obtain. The liquid is guarded by a magical beast called the Soul Nightmare Beast, which specializes in cultivating soul power. The Spirit Essence Liquid and the Soul Nightmare Beast are inseparable, like conjoined twins. No matter where the liquid forms, the beast will find it. But no one has ever actually seen the beast, as it's elusive and almost impossible to track. Lastly, the 10,000-Year Snow Lotus Core, Xiao Yan said, now deep in thought. This grows in the deathly cold regions, where even Dou-Xian experts wouldn't dare venture without sufficient power. It's found in 2 dangerous places, the icy lands, where the temperature drops so low that only the most powerful can survive, and the deserts, where the scorching heat can stop even the bravest in their tracks. The Snow Lotus Core's properties are extraordinary. It can preserve a person's body, preventing decay for a short period. It's a miracle herb. As Xiao Yan's mind raced through the effects of these herbs, he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. Though his master, Tua Shi Ancient Emperor, had written about these herbs in his books, the descriptions were vague and lacked specific locations where they could be found. Hey, Xiao Yan, are you all right? Mu Yingying asked, her long eyelashes fluttering as she looked at him. She couldn't understand why he seemed so shocked. She had only mentioned a few herbs she needed, but he was reacting as if she had said something impossible. "You're asking me if I'm all right?" Xiao Yan said, struggling to contain his exasperation. "Do you know what those herbs are? The ones you just mentioned?" He couldn't help but wonder how Mu Yingying could remain so calm. These 3 herbs were so rare that even if you scoured the entire Dodi continent, they would be nearly impossible to find. Yet here she was, casually asking for them. "I don't know all the details, but I do have a feeling that these herbs are rare and difficult to obtain," Mu Yingying admitted. "But we have some time, right? We can take our time finding them. Who knows, we might even come across them tomorrow." "Let's head back," Xiao Yan said, giving Mu Yingying a thoughtful look. She was starting to remind him of Sooner, his close companion from the past. The 3 of them left the market and returned to their inn. As they walked, Mu Feng muttered under his breath, "Why does Mu Yingying need so many soul-related items? It's a bit strange." However, none of them noticed that a shadowy figure had been trailing them. Dressed entirely in black, the figure blended into the darkness, revealing only a pair of lifeless eyes, as still as death itself. Once back at the inn, they prepared to retire to their rooms, but an elderly figure appeared before them. "Elder Zhu," the 3 greeted respectfully. "Did you encounter anything unusual at the medicinal market?" Elder Zhu asked. "Sir, I struck a deal with a vendor. After the auction, I might join them on an expedition to the desert region in the Death Zone." Xiao Yan responded, his dark eyes locked on Elder Zhu, unsure how the elder would react to his plan. "Hee, that sounds fine. Some of the younger members will be heading there as well. You can go with them," Elder Zhu replied with a smile. "Thank you, Elder Zhu," Xiao Yan breathed a sigh of relief. His greatest concern had been that Elder Zhu would forbid him from going. After all, he was still missing 2 key ingredients for the pill to tame the sacred flame, and the upcoming auction in the mystic 3 heavens likely wouldn't have them. This desert expedition was his best shot. No need to worry. While we at the Incense Pavilion are a sect, we don't restrict our disciples too much. Good jade requires careful polishing, and experiencing the world outside is an important part of that, Elder Zhu added, noticing Mu Feng's puzzled expression. "Understood," they all responded. "By the way, who are you working with this time?" Elder Zhu asked, as if recalling something. "It's the Bloodblade mercenary group, I believe," Xiao Yan answered, recalling the vendor's mention of the group. "The Bloodblade mercenary group? Huh? That should work out well. I can take care of my own business at the same time," Elder Zhu said with a smile. "It's getting late. Rest up, everyone. Tomorrow, you'll get to see the most famous auction in the mystic 3 heavens," Elder Zhu said, disappearing from their sight. The 3 exchanged wry smiles and then headed to their respective rooms. "Mu Yingying," Xiao Yan called out as Mu Yingying was about to enter her room. "What is it?" she asked, turning her slightly weary eyes toward Xiao Yan, her hand resting on the door. "Be careful," Xiao Yan warned. His instincts, honed from years of training and battle, told him something wasn't right about Xin Mu, the man who had competed with Mu Feng for the ghost-repelling elixir. "Got it," Mu Yingying replied softly before disappearing into her room. "Sigh, I hope I'm just overthinking it," Xiao Yan muttered to himself as he made his way to his own room. He gently pushed open the door, checked to ensure there were no intruders, then locked it. Sitting at the table in the center of the room, he poured himself a cup of tea and took a slow sip, savoring the moment. He then set down the ancient ruler of heavenly flames, the heavy ruler strapped to his back. "Xiao Yan, there are several hidden auras around us. Even I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed," came a voice from the ancient ruler. It was Long Yi, who had appeared out of thin air, speaking to Xiao Yan with a serious expression. Since the Golden Dragon King was in, Xiao Yan had already set up a soul barrier around his room, filling the entire perimeter with his vast spiritual power. No ordinary person would be able to detect it, so Xiao Yan wasn't worried in the slightest. "Oh, Long Yi, even you sense a fearsome presence out there?" Xiao Yan was surprised. It was known that Long Yi, in his previous life, was a genuine Do Xian expert from the Dragon Clan. Although his dragon bloodline was diluted, he was still a dragon. Dragon beings, symbolizing power, were nearly unrivaled among creatures of similar rank. It's not exactly fear. After all, I was stripped of my physical body by those 3 damn humans and imprisoned for thousands of years. My current strength is likely only at the 7-star Do D level, Long Yi responded defensively, seeing Xiao Yan's teasing grin. If this aura is enough to unsettle you, the one behind it must be at least an 8-star Do D, right? Xiao Yan mused. An 8-star Do D. Such elusive figures are starting to gather here. Tomorrow's auction should be interesting. Finished with his musing, Xiao Yan didn't hesitate and took out the worn, yellowed scroll he had bought earlier that day. What's that? Long Yi asked curiously, transforming into a small dragon the size of a ruler and perching on Xiao Yan's shoulder. The moment the faded yellow scroll was brought out, the room was filled with an inexplicable power. Cough, cough, such immense spiritual pressure. Xiao Yan coughed as he laid the scroll flat on the table. An overwhelming wave of spiritual pressure erupted from the scroll. Himph! Xiao Yan grunted as his natal core inscription of divine motion immediately manifested from within, floating in the air. As soon as this natal core inscription appeared, the aggressive energy from the scroll suddenly quieted, like a child settling down in the presence of a parent. What exactly is hidden in this scroll? Xiao Yan muttered, feeling the intense heat emanating from his natal core inscription, something he had never experienced before. He summoned his spiritual energy, causing the inscription to hover in front of him. Once the scroll was pacified, Xiao Yan let out a sigh of relief and unleashed a surge of soul power, aiming it at the scroll. Swish! His soul power collided with the scroll, but it felt as though he had struck an indestructible rock. No matter how much spiritual force he applied, the scroll remained completely unmoved. Xiao Yan withdrew his soul power, frowning. He then summoned a stream of milky white flame-infused Do Qi, which began to envelop the scroll. Boom! The Do Qi, fused with the power of 23 different types of heavenly flames, burned furiously around the scroll. But after 10 minutes, the scroll remained completely intact. Damn it! What kind of artifact is this? Xiao Yan grumbled, withdrawing his Do Qi and pondering the mystery of the scroll. As he pulled back, his natal core inscription continued to emit a faint light, barely perceptible. What the hell is this thing? Xiao Yan muttered to himself. Soul power can't penetrate it, and even my Do Qi infused with 23 kinds of heavenly flames can't break through. He then reached out cautiously, laying his hand on the scroll, trying to discern something from its texture. Up close, Xiao Yan noticed that the scroll's surface resembled a jagged mountain range, though it was damaged in many places, with small skull-like symbols scattered across it, making it difficult to decipher. This looks like a broken mountain range, Xiao Yan murmured, observing the scroll's uneven surface. It's not a mountain range, Long Yi said, his dragon eyes flashing as he examined the scroll. There's something familiar about this. Try using your spiritual power again, Long Yi suggested, his voice carrying a sense of urgency. All right. Xiao Yan closed his eyes and summoned a faint stream of spiritual energy from his sea of spirit, directing it carefully toward the scroll. Go, he commanded, his spiritual energy rushing toward the scroll. Swish! This time, as the soul power touched the scroll, it shuddered violently, and a brilliant light suddenly burst from it. Did I succeed? Xiao Yan exclaimed, excited. Don't get ahead of yourself. Long Yi rolled his eyes at Xiao Yan's premature celebration. Just as Long Yi had predicted, the brilliant light faded almost as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the scroll dim once more. What's going on? Xiao Yan muttered, suppressing his confusion as he thought hard about the situation. When the scroll had briefly glowed, he had felt something familiar, a sensation that reminded him of the formations he had seen in Elder Zhu's study. Your spiritual power is too weak, Long Yi observed. It's clear that your soul energy activated the scroll, but it wasn't strong enough to sustain the effect. Xiao Yan nodded in agreement. The foundation of being a battle array master lay in the strength of one's spiritual power. Without sufficient soul energy, the strength of any formation would be limited. Xiao Yan's spiritual cultivation had progressed slowly because he had been relying on his own trial and error methods, which made his soul power advance at a snail's pace. Once I return to the incense pavilion, I'll have to train under Elder Zhu to properly enhance my spiritual power, Xiao Yan thought. With a plan in mind, he didn't hesitate any longer. He summoned the last of his spiritual energy, but this time, instead of targeting the scroll directly, he directed all of it into the natal core inscription floating in front of him. As Xiao Yan's spirit power flowed into the inscription, it began to glow softly. "Don't let me down," Xiao Yan muttered before using the inscription to channel his power toward the scroll. Thump, thump. The inscription hovered above the scroll, and a force from within it surged toward the battered artifact. Success. After only a few minutes, the seemingly indestructible scroll finally began to yield to the power of the natal core inscription. "Thanks," Xiao Yan said to the inscription, which seemed to gleam with childlike joy before returning to its place in Xiao Yan's Niwen palace. He noted that the inscription felt a bit stronger than before, though he was too focused on the scroll to examine it closely. The scroll, now infused with the inscription's energy, transformed into a pure white light that hovered over the table. "What is this?" Xiao Yan wondered aloud as he reached out to touch the light, feeling certain it was the essence of the scroll, refined by his natal core inscription. As soon as his hand made contact with the light, an overwhelming aura flooded into his mind. Immortal Master's Formation, Immortal Binding Silk Vine. The Immortal Binding Silk Vine formation is designed to entangle and delay opponents. However, only those with soul power at the Immortal Master level can safely use it. Otherwise, it will backfire. As this knowledge filled his mind, Xiao Yan's face grew dark. After all this, had he just gotten excited over nothing? Immortal Master? Was this some kind of joke? In all of the Mystic Three Heavens, there was likely only one battle array master, Elder Zhu. There were almost no others with the talent for such arrays, and even those few had little chance of reaching the level of an immortal master. This thing is just a trap to mess with people, Xiao Yan muttered in frustration. With a flick of his finger, a milky white flame erupted, and he directed it toward the scroll. Swish! The worn scroll, which had become vulnerable after being refined by Xiao Yan's natal core inscription of divine motion, instantly turned to ashes. As the scroll burned into nothingness, a thin thread of light emerged, containing a message. To the Fated One, mastering the Immortal Binding Silk Vine Array doesn't actually require the spiritual power of an immortal master. The array's strength will scale based on your soul power. Xiao Yan's interest peaked once again as he continued to absorb the information. The Immortal Binding Silk Vine Array is renowned for its resilience and strength. Even opponents stronger than you will find it hard to escape its grasp in a short time. The number of array patterns you can form depends on your soul power, and the strength of the array itself depends on the number of these patterns you can generate. Once the patterns are formed, you can engrave the array, allowing you to control it at will. The knowledge continued to flow into Xiao Yan's mind, guiding him in mastering the array. He quickly adapted to the workings of the Immortal Binding Silk Vine Array. Meanwhile, in the Xinling royal family, the night was anything but calm. The royal palace was brightly lit, as the entire royal household worked tirelessly to set up various defensive measures. Ensuring the safety of the auction venue and the protection of the valuable items to be auctioned was of utmost importance. As the host of the event, the Xinling royal family could not afford any mishaps. "How are the preparations for the royal auction?" A sultry voice echoed from one of the palace rooms. The speaker was a woman, her form accentuated by a tight-fitting uniform that perfectly highlighted her curvaceous figure. Her snake-like waist had long been the subject of many men's fantasies. Her long, sensual legs, combined with her alluring aura, made her irresistible to many. However, only those who knew her well understood who she really was. This was Xue Qiangwei, a pivotal figure in the entire Xinling royal family. If one were to speak of power, the Xinling king was undoubtedly one of the strongest in the royal family, second only to a few ancient elders. Yet, even the king himself had to show deference to this woman. The reason? She controlled the entire economy of the Xinling royal family. Though her strength was merely that of a one-star Dou-Di, no one dared to cross her. The flourishing state of both the Xinling royal family and the capital city, Xinling City, was largely due to Xue Qiangwei's cunning management of their wealth. Lady Changwei, the royal auction house is under full lockdown. Ready for tomorrow's auction? Reported a man with a tiger emblem on his shoulder. The emblem marked him as a member of the Tiger Fang Legion. It was rumored that Xue Qiangwei had already won over many members of the military, and the 3 stripes next to the tiger emblem indicated that this soldier held a high rank within the Legion. The Tiger Fang Legion had a rank system, with 5 stripes being the highest. What's the status of the 3 legions? Xue Qiangwei asked seductively, her sultry tone sending shivers down the spine of the soldier. Lady Qiangwei, the Tiger Fang Legion is handling the lockdown, while the Wolf Eagle Legion is in charge of covert defense. As for the deputy commander of the Wolf Eagle Legion, he has returned with the 4th prince, likely on some other mission. The Dragon Devourer Legion seems to have called an emergency meeting, and the entire legion is mobilizing, suggesting some major operation is underway. The soldier continued, maintaining his composure despite Xue Qiangwei's seductive presence. Very well, I understand. You may go. You won't be forgotten for your efforts, Xue Qiangwei said with a dismissive wave of her hand, and the soldier left. I wonder what the Xinling King is planning, Xue Qiangwei murmured, shaking her head slightly. But no matter. The wealth has been gathered, and it's almost time to welcome our ghost immortal back. The mystic 3 heavens will soon belong to the ghost realm. She whispered these words before returning to her other tasks, her seductive demeanor quickly restored. The night in Xinling City was always tranquil, as though the wind had traveled tens of thousands of miles without end. Back at the inn where Xiao Yan and the others were staying, a shadow slipped in through the back entrance, moving unnoticed in the moonlight. It was already late, and Mu Yingying and the others had long since fallen asleep. Xiao Yan, however, was still practicing the immortal binding silk vine array with great focus. This should be the room, a raspy voice muttered, and the door creaked open. Seems like they've arrived, Xiao Yan thought. Despite being deep in his training, he had kept a portion of his soul power on Mu Yingying's room. He had placed a trace of his spiritual energy on her earlier, and the moment her door was opened, Xiao Yan detected it. Such a fine little porcelain doll, but I wonder what the 3rd prince needs her for. The intruder whispered as he slipped inside Mu Yingying's room. Even though the 3rd prince isn't known for being indulgent, I better get on with my task, the black-clad figure muttered, softly closing the door behind him. Despite his stealth, Xiao Yan had already taken notice. Who's there? Coming in so late? Mu Yingying stirred, her instinct sharp. Xiao Yan had warned her earlier, and she had set up douqi barriers around her room. If anyone tampered with the barriers, she would immediately be alerted. Fire attribute. Is that you, Xiao Yan? Why are you here so late? Mu Yingying asked, still half asleep, her eyes barely open, revealing her delicate collarbone as she sat up. Swish. Without a word, the intruder rushed at Mu Yingying, aiming a blow at her forehead, clearly intending to knock her unconscious. Mu Yingying reacted instantly, rolling off the bed and landing gracefully on her feet. She frowned and shouted, "Who are you?" "I'm here to take you," the raspy voice answered coldly. "Humph." Mu Yingying snorted, quickly activating her techniques. A wave of azure flames erupted from her body, her gaze locked on the intruder. Even from the brief exchange, Mu Yingying could tell that she was no match for the intruder. Her only option was to hold out and hope Xiao Yan or the others would come to her aid. "Don't bother resisting. I've already set up a barrier around this room. No one will notice anything. Rest assured, I'm just following orders. I don't intend to harm you," the black-clad figure said, his dead, gray eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Mu Yingying felt a chill creep up her spine as she looked into his lifeless eyes. "Damn it!" Mu Yingying cursed, refusing to give in. "Enough of this," the intruder growled. He moved like a phantom, appearing behind Mu Yingying in an instant. Before she could react, he delivered a swift blow aimed at the back of her head. Netherworld heavenly wrath. A familiar voice rang out just as the intruder's hand was about to strike Mu Yingying. The sound echoed through the room, cutting through the silence like a sharp blade.